Alright, I know I am by no means the first person to do this, but I finally got my hands on both the black 128 gig iPhone 12 mini, which as you can see is already collecting fingerprints, and the graphite iPhone 12 Pro Max, the largest screen, the heaviest iPhone Apple has ever made, and this is my kind of comparison. I hate to admit it, but comparing two phones that just one of them has a LiDAR sensor, one of them has an extra 2 gigs of RAM, not really that interesting in my opinion, but having phones that can technically do the same things, but do them in such drastically different ways is more fascinating to me. And in case you're wondering what I think, coming from someone who's been using the iPhone 11 Pro Max for the past 14 months, it has been over a year now, I gotta say, the 12 mini is impressive. I didn't think something this compact or something this portable could actually have a decent viewing experience. And yet this is kind of what I think so many people have been wanting for so long. I just feel so nostalgic now, especially looking at, you know, how far we've come from iPhone 5S days and looking at the squared off design, and especially remember doing all those videos on the iPhone SE 2 way back in 2018 about an all-screen squared off design, and it feels like those videos and that hype was big enough deal that Apple decided to actually act on it, and they made this, which again, only been using it for the past couple minutes, so there's not a bunch of long-term opinions right now, but either way, just been doing some light typing and taking photos, and I am extremely impressed. And I know if you've been watching the channel for a while, you've been curious which one am I gonna end up keeping and putting my SIM in. Turns out the YouTube poll actually showed the 12 mini coming up a little bit ahead, so SIM card is going into this guy first. I will test this out first, and then I will also of course put my SIM in the 12 Pro Max after about a week and see how I feel about that. But first impressions are, normally I'm the guy who wants the biggest display possible, and that's why I've been, you know, such a big fan of the Pro Max for so long. But this is the first time, maybe it's just because I'm also setting up the 12 mini simultaneously, but this is the first time I'm picking up an iPhone and it's starting to feel just a little bit too gargantuan. It may have something to do with the more squared off design, which in my 12 Pro review I brought up how it doesn't really sit in the hand as comfortably, but now having a big phone that's also heavy and squared off, I don't know. I'm just a little bit overwhelmed by it at first, but again, maybe just juxtaposition, using these two phones next to each other makes it feel that way. Definitely feels like there's a lot of space and breathe room between all the apps, whereas 12 mini keeps everything tight and pushed together, especially the little icons beside the notch. Those definitely feel much smaller than before, but just holding this in my hand, I can reach every part of the display so much more comfortably than before, and because the phone is so light and sits in my hand so easily, I don't really notice the squared off design cutting in as much as before, kind of like how our old iPhones used to be in the first place. So first impressions are good on both of these phones. I'm actually very excited to see how good the battery life is on this and mess around with the 2.5x zoom instead of just the normal 2x, and also try to see if the 12 mini battery life can get me through the day with my average use cases, because that seems to be the running concern on the internet. The main drawback by going with the 12 mini is you have to put up with a somewhat more crappy battery life, and of course that glossy back, which I don't know if you can tell, but it's definitely picking up fingerprints already. But 12 Pro Max is also picking up fingerprints like a madman all over the stainless steel, but I do dig this graphite color. Whichever one I end up keeping, I'm definitely gonna be very excited about it, because these are, simply put, some of the most interesting iPhones Apple has ever made. But of course, all of this is coming from the perspective of a guy who's used to using the plus-sized Max iPhones. You know, I use the XS Max, I use the 8 Plus even after using the iPhone 10 for a while, and I kind of liked it. But some of you are not coming from big phones like I am. Some of you are coming from smaller generation phones like the 5.8-inch 11 Pro, and I'm just gonna pretend for a minute, just hypothetically, I'm going to imagine that I've been using smaller phones for the past few years and give you my opinions on these new phones now.
Whoa, much better. I look better. And now from a better perspective. Coming from a 12 Pro, the smaller of the variant, I could tell you that this feels way more comfortably. As someone who has advocated for small phones, I can tell you that I've always said that the 11 Pro was very comfortable in the hand. However, when you get this size, one-handed, baby, so good. Now, even though I've never been one to have the bigger size after the 7 Plus, I have been always playing around with my friends' phones. Going from 11 Pro Max to a 12 Pro Max, night and day difference, and it's not just because of the coloring. Now, with this phone, you're entering iPad Pro mini territory, and it feels just too uncomfortable in the hand. As someone who's used to using smaller or normal sized phones, there's nothing wrong with this size, I guarantee it. I can say with first impressions though, with the 12 mini, that this is lighter, more balanced, perfectly balanced, as all things should be. Easier for standing up on the prop, easier to stand up straight. The camera module on the 12 Pro Max, you're getting into Galaxy territory, where this is like a return to form. And it's beautiful. One thing that I will say I can appreciate right from the get-go, going from 11 Pro to 12 mini, is that even though I'm giving up the third camera, the telephoto, I can say that it's not that much of a deviant going from the screen sizes. Looking at it and seeing the text and the fonts, it is smaller. It is noticeably smaller, but in all the right ways. Scrolling through and using widgets and looking at the apps just on the home screen alone, I can see that everything adjusts to size. And when I'm looking at the 12 Pro Max, it's starting to remind me of that first generation of the iPad Pro when all the apps are pushed to the side. So this one feels it's more condensed, but in all the right ways. So just being with the phone for about 5 minutes now, these are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know down in the comments. And until then, I will see you guys next time. Take care. Bye-bye.